Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are tackling something truly monumental, a figure who is at the same time a father, a guardian, a god, and a prisoner.
We're talking about the Emperor of Mankind.
Yeah.
And you can't really overstate his importance. He's a scientific genius, a ruthless warlord, and right now, a psychic anchor holding human civilization together.
And that's the central paradox, isn't it? If you've ever wanted to understand the phrase, heavy is the head that wears the crown, this is like the ultimate example. He's the ruler of the Imperium, but he hasn't moved from the golden throne of Terra in 10,000 years.
Exactly. And we have to unpack how this man, who fundamentally rejected all religion, who personally ordered the destruction of every church on ancient Earth,
On Terra.
how he becomes the central tortured deity as a galactic empire that worships him with absolute fanaticism.
It's an incredible contradiction. So let's start with his current state. What is his existence actually like day to day on that throne?
Well, existence is a strong word. It's more like a state of perpetual impossible burden. For 10 millennia, his body, which was shattered in his final battle, has been kept intact only by this ancient, complex machine.
The Golden Throne.
The Golden Throne. It's a life support system, but it's fueled by his sheer, immense psychic will. And this is the truly grim part. It's also powered by sacrifice.
The daily sacrifice of psychers?
The daily sacrifice of countless millions of psychers. Their souls, their life force, are drained just to keep them alive, just to keep the machine running for one more day.
That's a concept that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Millions of souls every single day as fuel. But here's the kicker. Even in that state, broken and in agony, he's still running the show. Psychically, at least.
Oh, absolutely. His will is omnipotent. He's performing several critical tasks all at the same time, constantly. He's guiding humanity through the Emperor's Tarot.
Which is a form of divination.
A very specialized form, yes. He's also soul-binding new psychers to the Imperium. This is vital, because an unbound psyker is basically an open door for demonic possession.
Right. And then there's the big one, the Astronomicon.
The Astronomicon. It might be the single most important piece of infrastructure in the entire galaxy.
Okay, let's focus on that for a second. What is it and why is it so crucial?
It's a psychic beacon, a lighthouse. Imagine an immeasurably bright psychic light that emanates from the Emperor himself, beaming out from Terra across tens of thousands of light years.
And this allows for interstellar travel.
It allows for safe interstellar travel. Ships have to navigate through the warp, the immaterium, which is this psychic hellscape just filled with entities that want nothing more than to devour you, body and soul.
So without the Emperor's light to guide them?
Travel stops. Instantly. The entire Imperium would shatter into isolated, doomed star systems overnight. He is the glue holding it all together from a golden cage.
So an active, agonizing protector. To really understand him, though, and this terrible present, we have to go all the way back. Back to the beginning.
And the origins are just as extraordinary as everything else about him. We're talking about a birth that predates recorded history, around 8000 BC.
So dawn of civilization stuff?
Exactly. He was born in what would now be central Anatolia, in Turkey, a small Proto-Hittite village on Terra.
The level of detail there makes it sound less like a random birth and more like, I don't know, a project. And the sources suggest that's exactly what it was. This wasn't an accident.
Not at all. The prevailing theory is that his existence was, for lack of a better word, engineered. It was the work of a conclave of incredibly powerful human psychers from that era, known only as the shamans.
Shamans. And they were already aware of the threat from the warp, even back then.
They were. They could feel it. They knew that the rising tide of human emotions, our anger, our fear, our desires, was starting to coalesce in the warp, giving birth to these vast, malevolent psychic entities.
The chaos gods.
The very beginning of them, yes. And the shamans realized that these entities were starting to prey on human souls. Specifically, they were disrupting their own ability to reincarnate.
Wait, so they believed their souls would just get eaten by the warp when they died?
That's what they feared, yes. That the natural cycle of reincarnation would be broken, and their souls would be sucked into this increasingly hostile dimension for an eternity of torture. They saw the writing on the wall for humanity's spiritual future.
So what did they do?
They came up with a desperate final plan, a mass suicide pact. Thousands of them, all at once.
Why all at once?
The timing was critical. They needed all of their souls, all of that psychic energy, to hit the warp at the exact same instant. The idea was to pool their collective power, their life force, their ability to reincarnate, and focus it all into creating a single, new, overwhelmingly powerful being.
A new man.
The new man. And about a year later, that child was born. the emperor.
Wow. So from the absolute moment of his conception, his entire purpose was to be a defense mechanism, a psychic weapon built to fight chaos.
It wasn't a philosophy he adopted. It's what he was made for. And you see this power manifest really early on, not with any kind of religious feeling, but with cold, hard pragmatism.
The story with his uncle.
The story with his uncle. As a young man, he has a vision that his uncle has murdered his father.
And his reaction isn't grief or fear.
No, neither. He just confronts his uncle and, using his psychic abilities, calmly stops his heart. The accounts are very clear. There was no sorrow, no malice. It was just a necessary action, a problem being solved.
And that taught him his first big lesson about humanity.
That humanity needed law. It needed order. It needed a firm hand to guide it away from its own petty self-destruction. And soon after, he leaves his village and sets out into the world.
And he wasn't just a powerful psyker. The sources are clear he is a perpetual. We should define that because it's key to everything that follows.
A perpetual isn't immortal. They don't age. But more than that, if they're killed, even completely vaporized, they will eventually regenerate and come back to life.
So for the next 30, 40,000 years, he's basically a ghost in human history. Watching, waiting, sometimes stepping in.
Imagine that perspective, watching empires rise and fall, watching humanity make the same mistakes over and over, all while knowing this cosmic threat is just growing in the background.
And he didn't just stick to one identity. He had to be incredibly adaptable.
Oh, he took on countless forms. Male, female, conquerors, quiet advisors, whatever the situation required. We do have one specific identity that's been confirmed, though.
Alexander the Great.
He was Alexander the Great, conquering most of the known world. There's a story that he wept when he thought there were no more worlds to conquer. That ambition, that drive, was a core part of him from the start.
So he wasn't just observing, he was actively trying to push humanity forward, to impose some kind of order. He even gathered other perpetuals to his cause, right? People like him.
Yes, he knew he couldn't do it alone, not in the long run. He recruited others, like Erda and Elenius Persson, who became his war master for a time. But these early alliances also showed just how ruthless his vision was.
Which brings us to that conflict with Elenius. It's such a great insight into the emperor's mindset.
It is. They're fighting this dark cult that built a tower. A tower that was basically a faucet, leaking raw warp energy into the world. After they win, Elenius wants to tear it down immediately.
Which makes sense. Destroy the evil thing.
Right. But the emperor refuses.
Why? That seems to go against everything he stands for later.
Because he wanted to study it. His logic was terrifyingly simple. To defeat chaos, you have to understand it. You have to know its weapons, its weaknesses. He wanted to preserve that dark knowledge as a tool.
And Elenius couldn't accept that.
He was disgusted. He saw it as playing with fire, risking corruption for his strategic advantage. He ends up stabbing the emperor and destroying the tower himself, and that was the end of their friendship. It shows you the emperor's pragmatism.
Yeah.
No cost is too high to win the long war.
And that willingness to touch the darkness, to fight the darkness, that leads us directly to the single biggest gamble he ever took, the Molech bargain.
This is a massive turning point. During the dark age of technology, he travels to a world named Molech. And on this planet, there's a gateway, a natural, stable gateway into the realm of chaos itself.
He walked right into the lion's den. He went into the heart of his enemy's territory. Why? What could he possibly need from them?
Power. Power on a scale he didn't yet possess. He needed certain metaphysical tools, certain knowledge, to create the weapons for his great crusade.
The Primarchs.
The Primarchs. When he emerged from that gateway, he possessed a measure of the dark god's own power. He had, in essence, stolen their fire, and he used that power combined with his own genetics to create his 20 superhuman sons.
But this is the most critical part, the ultimate act of defiance that painted a giant target on his back for the rest of time. He didn't keep his end of the deal.
Not even a little. The Chaos Gods presumably gave him this power, expecting him to be their champion, to spread their influence.
Yeah.
Instead, he turned it against them. He became anathema, the great enemy.
He became the one being in the galaxy they hated and feared above all others. And this act directly fuels his great doctrine for the crusade to come, the imperial truth.
Right. The imperial truth was the official state ideology of the Great Crusade. Publicly, its message was simple. Humanity must embrace the cold, clear light of science and logic. All religion, all superstition had to be purged.
And he was brutal about it. His first super soldiers, the Thunder Warriors, literally tore down every church, temple, and holy site on Terra. He erased organized religion.
But again, like with the tower, there was a public reason and a real reason. And this is where it gets really interesting. The true purpose of the imperial truth wasn't just philosophical.
It was a survival strategy.
It was a psychic quarantine. The emperor believed he knew that faith, superstition, and blind dogma were easy doors for chaos to enter the minds of humans.
Ah, so it wasn't just that he thought religion was wrong, he thought it was a vulnerability, an active security risk for the entire species.
Exactly. Faith generates the kind of intense, raw emotion that the chaos gods feed on. By stamping it out, he was trying to starve them, to inoculate humanity against their influence. His ultimate goal was to completely sever humanity's connection to the malignant parts of the warp.
He wanted to guide humanity's evolution into a fully psychic race, but a controlled one that could use the warp without being consumed by it.
A state of being not even the ancient Eldar had achieved. But to do that, to manage that transition safely, he first had to solve the problem of travel. He had to get humanity out of the warp.
The Webway Project.
The Webway Project. This was the linchpin of his entire grand design. He discovered a fragment of this ancient network deep beneath Terra. The Webway is basically a labyrinth of tunnels that run through a separate dimension outside both real space and the warp.
It was built by an ancient alien race, the Old Ones, and used by the Eldar.
Correct. And the Emperor saw it as the solution to everything. If he could create a human entrance to the Webway on Terra and expand it, humanity would no longer need to travel through the warp at all.
No more navigators, no more demonic incursions during travel.
And no more need for his own psychic light, the Astronomicon. He could create a safe, stable network connecting all of human space, completely cut off from the influence of chaos. He could then step off the Golden Throne and lead humanity in person.
But to conquer the galaxy and hold it long enough for this project to be completed, he needed generals, his sons. The Primarch Project.
He created 20 superhuman infants from his own genetic code, each one designed to be a brilliant commander, a leader, an extension of his own will.
And this is where the Chaos Gods got their revenge for the Molech bargain. The whole plan just goes spectacularly wrong.
It does. Just as they're reaching gestation, the infant Primarchs are ripped from the Emperor's lab. The Chaos Gods snatch them and scatter them across the galaxy, casting them through the warp.
There is an alternative theory for that, isn't there? Involving the other perpetual, Erda.
There is. Some sources suggest it was Erda who scattered them, that she saw them as her sons, not just the Emperor's tools of war, and she wanted to save them from that fate.
Whichever version you believe, the outcome is the same. A devastating blow. He loses his sons and his generals in one fell swoop.
It forced him into a contingency plan. He couldn't remake the Primarchs, but he could use their salvaged genetic data. And from that, he created the Legionia Astartes, the Space Marines.
His new army. Better than the ones that came before.
Oh, far better. His first super soldiers, the Thunder Warriors, were brutally effective for conquering Terra, but they were unstable. Prone to catastrophic psychological and physical breakdown, they were a blunt instrument.
And the Space Marines were scalpels.
Precisely. More stable, more disciplined. The perfect army for a galactic crusade. Another example of his cold pragmatism, really. He had the Thunder Warriors purged once their purpose was served to make way for a superior creation.
Okay, so the crusade is on, the Astartes are winning, and the Emperor is back on Terra working on his secret Webway project. But before we get to the betrayal that ruins everything, we need to understand the scale of what he was fighting. Why was he so afraid? He had a precedent. He'd seen what happens when a psychic race gets it wrong.
The Eldar precedent, yes. To get that, you first have to understand what the Chaos Gods truly are. They aren't gods in the traditional sense. They are psychic entities, born from and sustained by the collective emotions of every living, thinking being in the galaxy.
So they're literally made of our feelings.
In a way, yes. If all sentient life vanished, they would starve and wither away. They need us.
Let's quickly run through the main four, because their domains explain why the Emperor was so focused on suppressing emotion and faith.
Okay, first you have Khorne, the blood god, the god of anger, hate, and violence. Every act of rage, every murder, every battle, no matter who wins or loses, empowers him. He's the first and arguably the most straightforward of the four.
Then you have Nurgle.
Nurgle, the lord of decay. He represents despair, disease, stagnation. He was born from the great plagues of Terra's Middle Ages, from the hopelessness of mortals facing inevitable death.
But he's weirdly cheerful about it all.
That's his paradox. He's the god of despair, but he offers the comfort of acceptance. His followers find a strange joy in the cycle of decay and rebirth. the comfort you find in giving up.
And his opposite is Sanch.
Tzeentch, the changer of the ways, the god of ambition, scheming, hope, and magic. He's all about change and evolution. He thrives on plots and manipulation, the desire to alter your fate, to gain knowledge. That's his domain, which makes him the natural enemy of Nurgle's stagnation.
And finally, the youngest and the most relevant to the Eldar story, Slaanesh.
Slaanesh, the prince of excess, the god of lust, greed, pride, hedonism, perfection. Any desire taken to its absolute extreme. And Slaanesh's birth is the single greatest warning in the history of the galaxy.
The fall of the Eldar.
The fall of the Eldar. For millions of years, the Eldar were the dominant power in the galaxy. They were masters of technology, psychic power, the webway. They achieved a post-scarcity society.
A utopia, essentially. No work, no struggle, just art and philosophy. So what went wrong?
Boredom. Absolute, soul-crushing boredom combined with extreme psychic sensitivity. With no challenges left, they turned inward, seeking new sensations. And those sensations became darker and more extreme over time.
The pleasure cults.
The pleasure cults. They descended into cruelty, sadism, and every imaginable vice just to feel something new. An entire galactic empire dedicated to hedonism.
And all of that psychic energy, all of that concentrated desire and depravity was feeding something in the warp.
It was creating a new god. Slaanesh was being gestated by the collective soul of the Eldar race. They were literally birthing their own doom.
And when Slaanesh was finally born,
it was a cataclysm, a psychic scream that tore across the universe. It instantly killed 90% of the Eldar race. It sucked their souls into the warp for an eternity of torture. It devoured most of their gods. And at the heart of their former empire, it ripped a permanent hole in reality.
the Eye of Terror.
The Eye of Terror, a massive warp rift where the laws of physics don't apply and demons rule. And this, for the Emperor, was the ultimate proof.
He saw what happened to the Eldar and thought, that is the future for humanity if I fail.
Precisely. Unchecked psychic evolution plus intense emotion equals species-wide damnation. That's why he was so authoritarian about the imperial truth. It wasn't just about control. It was a desperate attempt to steer humanity off the exact same cliff.
But all that planning, all that foresight was shattered by the one thing he couldn't control. The loyalty of his own sons, the Horus heresy.
It began with Horus, his favorite son, his war master, being corrupted by chaos. He was manipulated into believing the Emperor was a hypocrite, planning to ascend to godhood himself and abandon his sons.
A lie that sparked a galactic civil war. But the real physical catastrophe that doomed the Emperor's grand plan came from another son, Magnus the Red, who was trying to do the right thing.
Magnus discovered Horus's betrayal and tried to warn his father. But he did it telepathically, from across the galaxy, using forbidden sorcery. He smashed through the psychic wards, protecting the Imperial Palace on Terra with all his might.
And in doing so, he broke the one thing he shouldn't have touched.
He shattered the delicate machinery of the Golden Throne, which the Emperor was using as the control hub for the Webway project.
And that created a breach.
A massive warp breach,
Yeah.
right under the palace. A demon army started pouring through. The Emperor had to abandon everything, all his work, and physically sit on the throne, using every ounce of his psychic power just to hold the breach closed.
His great work was ruined. He was trapped. The dream of a safe, warp-free future for humanity died in that moment.
It did. The sources say he despaired, that he knew then that humanity was probably doomed in the long run. The safe path was gone. All that was left was the long, slow decline we see in the current setting.
And eventually, he had to leave the throne to face Horus. This leads to the final, tragic confrontation.
It does. Aboard Horus's flagship, orbiting a burning Terra. And the Emperor realizes Horus has been so empowered by the Chaos Gods that he might actually lose.
So he takes the ultimate risk. He does the one thing he swore he'd never do.
He drinks deep from the warp. He draws its raw power into himself, intending to ascend and become a god of pure order, counter the gods of chaos, a dark king.
The ultimate irony. The man who fought against godhood becoming a god to win.
But just as he's about to complete this transformation, he's stopped.
By an old friend.
By Elanius Person, his old war master, who somehow appears on the bridge. And Elanius reminds him of his humanity, talks him down from that precipice, convinces him to fight as a man, even if it means losing, rather than win as a monster.
So he sheds that power, and Horus mortally wounds him.
He does. But in that final moment, the Emperor sees a flicker of his true sun beneath the corruption. He tricks Horus into a moment of prideful hesitation, dropping his chaos-fueled guard.
And that's his chance.
That's his chance.
Yeah.
Horus, clear for just a second, realizes what he's done and begs for death. And the Emperor grants it. obliterating his son's body and soul with a final, soul-scouring psychic blast.
But it costs him everything. He collapses, shattered beyond repair.
His surviving sons, Rogaldorn and Vulcan, rush him back to the Golden Throne. They plug him into the life support mechanisms he'd built for his webway, and he's been there ever since, a prisoner in his own salvation machine.
And over 10,000 years of that suffering, it's changed him. It's stripped away his humanity. We know this from his son, Robert Gilliman, who was revived and actually spoke with him.
And Gilliman was horrified. He felt this overwhelming coldness. He said the Emperor spoke to him not like a father to a son, but like a creator to a long-lost tool. Millennia of agony had burned away everything except his function, his duty.
So we're left with this shattered god, this pragmatic scientist, forced into a role he despised, sustained by the very faith he tried to eradicate. Where does it go from here? What's the future?
Well, there are a few conflicting theories, usually tied to different factions in the Imperium, who all have their own ideas about what should happen.
Let's start with the most mystical one, the Star Child theory.
This theory suggests that when the Emperor was nearly killed, a large part of his soul, his compassion and humanity, fractured off and scattered into the warp. The idea is that this soul fragment is slowly coalescing into a new entity, the Star Child, which could eventually be reborn.
Like the shamans of old.
Exactly, completing the cycle. But there's a catch. This new being can't be born while the Emperor's physical body is still tied to the Golden Throne.
So to save him, you'd have to unplug him.
And if you do that, the Astronauticon goes out, the breach under Terra opens, and the Imperium collapses. It's the ultimate catch-22.
Okay, what about the Sensei Emperor theory? That one sounds more like a conspiracy.
It basically is. A secret society believes that the Emperor has living descendants scattered through the galaxy who carry a spark of his power. They're called the Sensei.
And their plan is?
Their plan is to gather all the Sensei and sacrifice them to the Golden Throne at once. They believe this massive infusion of his own genetic and spiritual energy would be enough to fully resurrect him.
Using mass sacrifice to bring back the man who hated superstition, the irony is just staggering.
It's everywhere you look with this. And finally, you have the God incarnate theory.
This one sounds more straightforwardly religious.
It is. The Thorian cult believes the Emperor has already fully ascended into godhood, and his essence is now a pure psychic force in the warp. They think all they need to do is find a suitable host, a divine avatar, and they can channel his spirit back into the physical world.
So 3 different paths, all with massive risks and all steeped in the kind of faith he fought against.
Which brings us back to the core tragedy. He spent thousands of years planning for a future of pure logic and science, a humanity guided by reason, safe from the horrors of the warp through the webway.
And chaos broke that plan.
Chaos broke the plan. And now, 10,000 years later, what's keeping humanity alive? The very things he rejected. The daily religious sacrifice of psychers to his throne, and the blind, unquestioning faith of 1 trillion subjects who worship him as a god.
He tried to save humanity from faith, and now faith is the only thing saving humanity.
It is the ultimate failure of his grand design, and the ultimate proof of his success as a protector. He's trapped, sustained by the very poison he tried to create an antidote for.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The Emperor's grand, logical plan failed, and he was forced to survive using the tools he despised: faith and sacrifice. What does that say about humanity's destiny? Was he wrong about faith being a weakness? Or was the enemy just so terrible that humanity was forced into the worst-case scenario simply to survive? Something for you to think about.
Until next time.